I'm pretty sure Major League Baseball offices are brimming with excitement on this Thursday. You have Red Sox, Yankees, one-game playoff. It's going to be so loud at Yankee Stadium. 2 rookies are starting. Should be a fun night. And this is your morning Buzzcast for Thursday, October 2nd. I'm Abe Madkour. Let's stay with baseball because it's a new day in Tampa, as the group led by real estate developer Patrick Zalupski has assumed control of the Rays from departing owner Stu Sternberg. So why is this important? Well, it comes at an interesting time for the Rays. They will soon need a ballpark solution. That is critical to the team's future. They must get also some clarity on the repairs to the hurricane-damaged Tropicana Field, which they hope will be ready for opening day. Meanwhile, the team also wants to return to its winning ways. I believe they've had 2 straight losing seasons, and there will surely be a change in staff and personnel under new ownership. I am always fascinated about how new ownership will integrate themselves into an organization and a community. Now, one person to watch will be Ken Babby. He will be CEO and oversee day-to-day business operations. So who is Ken Babby? Well, he is known in sports circles. He's seen as a very effective operator. He's 45 years old. He has owned 2 minor league teams, one in Jacksonville, one in Akron, Ohio. He is an aggressive, idea-minded leader who can jumpstart business, but also understands operations and how to operate a sports team. His father, Lon Babby, was once the general counsel for the Baltimore Orioles. He was also at the Phoenix Suns for a while. His father was involved in the building of Camden Yards, more than 30 years ago. So Ken Babby comes from a sports business background, and now he will be the public face of the Rays, and yes, very, very competent and capable, but he will have his work cut out for him, has a big job ahead as new owners take control of the Rays. Let's move on. It hasn't been an easy week for the PGA of America. Yes, they suffered a bruising defeat at the Ryder Cup with Team USA, and while the business around the Ryder Cup boomed, the PGA left pretty bruised because of the fan behavior and all the storylines on the course. Now, it should be noted that fan behavior was anticipated, almost predicted, and discussed for well over a year before the event. You knew that Europeans and Americans outside of New York City at Bethpage Black would be a recipe for quite an emotional atmosphere. But everyone would agree it seemed to be over the top at this year's Ryder Cup. The PGA of America has been laying low all week since all the reports of unruly fan behavior, and I was curious what the organization's PR strategy was going to be. While the organization's CEO, Derek Sprague, did come out, spoke to the Golf Channel, and said that the behavior at Bethpage Black has no place in the game of golf, and that the PGA was not happy with what happened, but they did say the organization ejected a number of fans and moved other fans who were heckling the European team to other areas on the golf course. Sprague believes they handled all incidents pretty swiftly. He admitted there was a small number of fans that crossed the line, but he said that most fans behaved, most fans greatly enjoyed themselves, and that he's heard from many who had a great experience at the Ryder Cup. And yes, I believe that. But the general vibe is the feeling that the Ryder Cup has reached a tipping point with the behavior of the patrons, and some change needs to happen. And so more control is likely to come on fan behavior at future Ryder Cups. I do think this will put security and safety and fan behavior in the spotlight at all future sports events. Shifting over to college sports, we keep hearing about private equity willing to invest in the college space. We know the Big 12 was close to a deal, but the presidents just weren't comfortable and couldn't get to a deal. We keep hearing that no one wants to be first. I will say we've heard from the beginning of the year that the Big Ten was eyeing private equity investment. And ESPN reported this week the conference is getting closer. It's in discussions about a deal where at least $2 billion of private capital would be invested into the conference and the schools. Reportedly, there is wide-ranging support among the conference, but the goal is to have unanimous support before a vote, and a decision is likely in the upcoming weeks. So here's what it would look like. The model most discussed would be establishing a new commercial entity within the Big Ten, Big Ten Enterprises. That would include all revenue areas, media rights, sponsorships, really all league revenue streams under Big Ten Enterprises. Money of the $2 billion would immediately go to the schools, and that would help the schools in their needs around revenue sharing. And the idea is that the Big Ten could better optimize all of its revenue streams by having a more sophisticated operation, a more sophisticated sales model, more commercial inventory, higher prices, and that would eventually make the long-term return the PE companies are looking for. So the bottom line is, it seems we're getting closer to private equity investing in college sports, which would mark a major change in the way college sports conferences and institutions do business. It's hard to believe that the NHL starts its season next week. The league is in a really good place. They have a lot of components that they've figured out. Some international competition. Of course, they have long-term labor peace that was reached over the summer, and that's resulted in an increase in the salary cap. And that, of course, is being reflected in player contracts. Now, the Minnesota Wild signed an 8-year, $136 million contract extension with its star, Kirill Kaprizov, which makes him the highest paid player this season. It's the most valuable deal in NHL history by both average annual value and overall value. So again, we know the salary cap was going up by significant amounts for the league. And there's more and more revenue in the system, and this is good for the players. And this ensures for the fourth straight season, the NHL will have a new highest paid player. But the one to watch, of course, is Connor McDavid, who is headed into the final year of his current contract. There's no extension, and the story of whether McDavid stays in Edmonton, I believe, is one of the biggest stories to watch. He's easily one of the biggest stars in the game, but he's playing in one of the smallest markets. Remember, Wayne Gretzky did too, and he departed Edmonton, but that was via a trade to Los Angeles. Now, Connor McDavid could leave, he could be re-signed, but that situation will be a major storyline around the NHL season. But again, we'll have more on the NHL season opening next week, but a lot of pieces in place for a successful run for the league. Shifting to soccer, there's been a lot of discussions of sports and politics recently, and at our sister company's big event, Leaders Week London, which is taking place this week in London, FIFA Vice President and CONCACAF President Victor Montigliani seemingly had a pretty blunt message for President Trump and the Trump administration. He stated pretty clearly at the conference that FIFA, not government, not any government, ultimately decides which cities will host the World Cup. This comes in response to Trump's claim that he may move World Cup games from cities that he deemed unsafe. Montigliani was pretty clear, saying it's FIFA's tournament and FIFA makes the decisions. He also implied that soccer is bigger than any current political debate or political government or institution. So we will see if his remarks puts the World Cup or even FIFA in Trump's crosshairs, but politics and the World Cup will continue to intersect. And finally, we'll end with this. One of the teams in sports that should always stay in their market will do so for the foreseeable future. And it's a good thing, because if you don't know the role that the Saints play in New Orleans and Louisiana and the entire region, you really have to experience it. Remember, this team was on the verge of relocation after Hurricane Katrina, and it was the work of Paul Tagliabue and so many others that kept the Saints in New Orleans, where they should stay forever. And the Saints should announce today, Thursday, that they have finalized a long-term lease to stay at Caesars Superdome, and this ends a pretty contentious negotiation with state officials. And the stadium lease deal is expected to run likely through 2055. So that is a long-term deal. Of course, the Saints will have options, but it's a great deal for fans in the region. It's been a big week for the Superdome and the city, because New Orleans was awarded the College Football Playoff National Championship game in January of 2028. That will bring the title game back to Caesars Superdome for the second time. Remember, they had hosted it in 2020. This is a reward for all the renovations that have been put into the Superdome recently. That's the reason why the NFL returned the Super Bowl to the city last February. This building and this city will be in the mix for big events for years to come, as it should be, because New Orleans is always one of the most popular spots for sports executives and sports' biggest events. So the takeaways from today's Buzzcast are: number one, always watch to see how new owners integrate and introduce themselves to their market. Let's watch how the Rays' new owners make themselves known in Tampa. Number two, the increased salary cap in the NHL will certainly benefit players, of course, but it will also put pressure on teams to drive more revenue. Number three, New Orleans gets a shot in the arm this week with news of a long-term lease deal for the Saints and the CFP returning to Caesars Superdome, which brings much-needed economic activity and energy for that region. And number four, while a key soccer leader tried to downplay it, there will continue to be a political undercurrent around the World Cup. And I'll throw an extra one in today. It may be just me, but afternoon playoff baseball still is one of the best parts of October. An SBJ programming note this week on the SBJ Sports Media Podcast. Austin Karp looks at how NFL games remain on pace for a record audience this season and why the Ryder Cup saw some of its lowest numbers in decades. Plus, with the NHL season set to begin, Steve Levy, the longtime voice of all things hockey on ESPN, discusses what's driving storylines around the league. And finally, a look at the biggest winners in media from MLB's regular season. All that and more on the SBJ Sports Media Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. Available now wherever you get your podcasts. And so that is your morning Buzzcast for Thursday, October 2nd. I'm Abe Madkour. Thanks for listening. Stay healthy. Be good to each other. I'll speak to you tomorrow.